How do you actually practice and build a loving relationship with yourself, especially as a woman? Of course, self-love is something that applies to all of us, regardless of gender. However, as a woman, there are some things that I have found to be extremely helpful to understand. We're giving too much. We tend to self-sacrifice to the point of where we have no loving relationship with ourselves. And so this is what I want to talk to you about today. As a woman, what are some specific things that you should be aware of so that you can navigate life in a way that is not based on abandoning or even punishing yourself just to please others and to fulfill your roles of, wife or mother or any of these other typical roles that we may play. Or even if they're not typical, it's important to understand the essence of who you are as a woman and the biology of this. Basically, how we were designed. I know that for me, this was super helpful. I was going through a pretty tough time in my marriage. My husband and I have been married for 16 years now. And the past 5 or 6 years, I've really been struggling with trust, with self-love, and therefore also opening myself up to receive and allow his love. And part of this stemmed from an argument that we had about 6 years ago that began to plant all these ideas and doubts and fears into my mind. But what I've really realized recently, since I've been working through this, doing a lot of inner work to really get to the root cause of this, why did that argument affect me so much? Really, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't even that big of a deal. So I know that most of these things started way back. They were wounds and programming I already had within me that were just triggered by something my husband did through this argument that we had. And now understanding the biology of a woman and how this plays into our psychology and affects the decisions we make in life, it affects how we see ourselves, how we show up for others. It affects basically everything in our lives, including your relationships, your family, but most importantly, your relationship with yourself and your self-worth. And as I've begun to understand these things, I've been able to release a lot of what does not serve me, and I can put up boundaries within myself, with others, and it's really just transforming my life in ways that I never even imagined. So I can't wait to share some of this with you here in this video today. So let's get into it. The first point that I want to make is on the biology, how we were designed by nature. So the first thing is the importance of relationships. If you think back to thousands of years ago, when we lived in a very natural biological way, nothing like how things are today, right? Back in the hunter-gatherer nomadic lifestyle, where we were much more vulnerable to the elements, right? Whether that's, weather conditions or wild animals, other tribes. Life or death situations were more common. Naturally, men are built stronger. And it's not to say that we are not strong as a woman, and none of this is to say that we can't do everything that a man does. But does that mean that we should? Does it mean that that's in our nature to do that, and it's actually going to make us feel good and fulfilled, especially long term? Through my own experience, I've found that usually it's not. It's more about what feels good to you as a woman, what fills you up. What do you really need? What are your real needs? Not what has society led you to believe that a woman should be, right? That we should be independent, we don't need a man, we can do everything on our own. A lot of these beliefs, even though they may be true, they end up being very toxic because we were not designed necessarily to do or be all of these things. And so a lot of the time, what happens is we are fulfilling a role, a responsibility, or a way of being that we were led to believe, often from a very young age, is the way that we should be. It's not actually making us happy. So if we look back to the early years of evolution, men have broader shoulders. They naturally are more muscular. Their brains are actually developed differently than women's brains. A man's brain is wired to very accurately predict depth and movement. Movement gets a man's attention very quickly. And the reasons for this are for survival, because a man is naturally built to be the protector, to go out and, defend his tribe, his family, to go out and get the food and come back and provide. And a woman is naturally designed to nurture the family, the children, the husband, when he comes back home, teach and guide their children, to support her man. Of course, he should be supporting her as well, but the way in which we support each other is different. If we were to go back and live in those times again, although it may be hard and possibly triggering to admit this, I know it was for me at first, but naturally, biologically, we depend, or at least back then, not so much anymore, the way life is now, but back then, our lives really did depend in a large degree on men, on the protection and the safety that was created from the men in our family, the men around us. And while our natural ability isn't developed so much to favor our perception of movement and depth like it is for a man, our brains are more wired to pick up on different colors and textures of things. We may look at, a color to paint our house and say, oh, what a beautiful teal color. And your husband may say, like, teal? That's blue, or that's brown even, right? They don't necessarily see colors in the same way that we do, or as many shades and variations as we do. What do you think being able to pick up on different colors and textures could be really helpful for back in those days of early evolution? For us women to be able to pick up on how the people around us in our tribe are feeling, if they're feeling under weather and their face is getting red or pink, or the texture of their skin is changing. These are things that we are very attentive to, very attuned to, so that we can be there to care for that person, to help nurture them back to health. So it's literally within the way that we are built. It's not just, a preference or a personality thing. It's a fundamental biological need that we have that's in our DNA. I share all of this with you because it really helps to understand why, as women, relationships are so important for us, because relationships really are a resemblance of our level of safety. We still carry this with us. It's not just romantic relationships. When the men were out fighting or gathering food, being part of a tribe was much safer than being out in the jungle, all on your own. And so with that comes a natural desire to please the people that we have relationships with, to nourish this relationship. But this is also why when our relationships are not going so well, or if we lose a relationship to somebody who really meant a lot to us, it can be detrimental to our well-being, to our mental, emotional, and physical health if we're not careful. Thing is, as we are so focused on the other people in our lives, in our relationships, and how everyone else is feeling, we naturally have this tendency to look to those outside of us and to give to them and to nurture them, which is a great thing, really. However, when it's to a point where we give to everyone except for ourselves, and we self-sacrifice for our relationships. When it gets to this point, you then forget about the relationship that you have with yourself, which is the most important relationship of all. The ironic thing is, when you do that, you cannot give as much as you would like to the relationships in your life. You cannot give the best of you if you are not giving to yourself first. So you try and you put all of this effort and energy into your relationship with your husband, your relationship with your children, with your friends. But despite all of this energy you're putting into it, you don't feel content and satisfied with yourself and how you are showing up for these relationships. You know you can do better, and you want to do better. You want to give everything you have. But the thing is, you don't have enough to give because your cup is empty. You've given it all already. The way you start your day is so fundamental for this. And it may mean getting up a little bit earlier than usual, but finding some time for yourself each day, if at all possible in the morning, so that before you begin giving to anyone else, you have already given to yourself. You have already begun to fill up your own cup. And therefore, when it's time to start giving to your children, to your husband, to whoever else it is in your life, you are giving from a place of overflow. You're not giving from your own cup, because that's for you, my dear. That is for you. You're supposed to begin giving of the overflow. But most of us are starting our day with our cups already half full, or potentially even worse. When that happens and we can't even show up for the people in our lives as we want to so bad and are trying to, we also begin to carry around a lot of guilt and shame, and these are very destructive emotions. Now, another thing to know about the biology of women is that we have the tendency to overthink things and to be pessimistic, to think about the worst case scenario, right? The what ifs. So yes, you're not alone in this. I know you've gone through it too, just like I have. It's something I'm constantly aware of now, so that I can catch myself whenever possible to switch this. But if you're not aware of it, it can be really easy to get down these negative thought spirals. And it's not your fault. It's actually part of your biological makeup. Now, that also doesn't mean by any means that you're doomed and you have to just succumb to this and there's nothing you can do about it. No, becoming conscious of it, bringing awareness to it, which you are doing right now by listening to me, is the best place to start to change it. The times we live in, with so much information coming at us all the time, it is different than it was back then when we first developed this ability and were able to use this to our advantage, because it would only come on and sort of activate when the situation warranted it to do so. But nowadays, we can watch a movie or see something on social media, and this can kind of be activated and go off when it's not really necessary, right? And so we can always be stuck in this way of thinking. It wasn't designed to be used in that way. And it can kind of end up being our own demise if we're not careful with it, right? Relationships are important to us, and yet we often self-sabotage them, end up destroying them unintentionally because of our pessimistic ways, because our focus starts to go on what our husband needs to improve, what he needs to do better, what he's not doing for me and he should be doing for me. And of course, this can be applied to many other relationships in our lives, especially when you bring in societal conditioning, cultural, social conditioning. We can really dig ourselves a hole. And so part of loving yourself as a woman is to understand this and accept this part of yourself, to not neglect it or abandon it or reject it. Part of loving yourself is accepting yourself as you are. Doesn't mean that, you just put your hands up and, okay, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. It's also about making a decision to do things differently. And it starts with just the awareness, being aware of this and starting to catch yourself. And or we can implement practices that can help us to shift our focus more towards what we want, what we desire, and what we're grateful for. And so that it doesn't become a self-fulfilling prophecy, all these things that we begin to worry about. And on the end screen of this video, I will link another video where I talk about daily self-love practices and begin to bring these into your life and apply them to really build that self-love. Important thing to know and keep in mind as you are building this loving relationship with yourself is to allow yourself, to give yourself the permission to be a woman beyond the roles of mother, of wife, of daughter, sister, whatever it may be that you feel you need to do or live up to, whatever you believe the expectations are of you in these specific roles. As relationships are so important for us, we can get so caught up in these roles that we're playing, right? And what is expected of us, because we don't want to let people down. We want to show up for them. We want to make them happy. We want them to feel good, but often it's at our own expense. And so we are too serious all the time because We're the mother who wants to make sure that our kid learns the important lessons now so that they're more prepared as an adult to go out into the world. Or we don't allow ourselves rest and play because we are so focused on doing everything for everyone and being there and being everything for everyone that we don't give ourselves time. We don't believe that we deserve that too. And we deserve to give ourselves what we desire and deserve, which is our own time, attention, and making time to do the things that we enjoy, the things that make us happy, to rest. You deserve that too, and you need that too. Really, you should be giving that and doing that to yourself. And first, put your oxygen mask on first. And then you'll be amazed at how much easier it feels and how much more you enjoy showing up for everyone else in your life and nurturing the other relationships in your life. And the really cool thing is, once you do this and you begin working on your own relationship with yourself first, loving yourself as a woman that you are, accepting all parts of yourself as a woman without judgment, without criticism, having compassion and grace and patience for yourself, just like you do for everyone else, you'll notice how everyone else in your life starts to reflect that. Your relationships become richer, more satisfying. You, instead of feeling unappreciated, unheard, misunderstood, taken advantage of, not good enough, whichever of those resonate with you, or perhaps even all of them, you'll notice how you start feeling differently. And you start feeling and seeing how the people in your life do appreciate you. And you start to feel loved and heard and understood. But it's not because the people around you have changed. It's because you changed. Your relationship with yourself changed. And it all starts from within. It's the ripple effect that you're witnessing. Your inner world being reflected in your external world. These are some things that you can do to go about loving yourself as a woman. And this is the journey that I'm on. I'm going to continue to share what I learn along the way. So make sure to stay tuned and subscribe to my channel if you found this helpful and you would like more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. We can go through this healing process together.